Hey, Monique.
Hi.
How are you today?
Fabulous.
Fabulous. That's good. We have a lot in common, you and I. Entrepreneurship, for sure.
Oh, yes.
But one of the things that I realized we really have in common, and it's been something that has been really on my mind lately, is that we've both been mothers while being entrepreneurs and in the thick of it. And as my children are nearing leaving the nest sooner even than I ever thought, I'm just like really thinking back on the journey. I'm like, wow, this chapter is sort of going to change. Like this one's coming to a close. They're going to be leaving to start their own lives, go to college and whatever's next. And since they were 2 years old, my daughters, my identical twin daughters, I have been an entrepreneur.
I know, right?
And I realize you're one of the few people in my life that like truly has shared that journey and from the beginning of their lives. And there's so many aspects of it that have been such a gift, but also so hard.
It's so true.
Because we, really speak to the female entrepreneur and somebody who's highly likely also has some kids, I thought it'd be very relevant for us to share really some of the highs and lows of choosing an entrepreneurial lifestyle while being a mother. What do you think?
I think we should.
Yes, let's explore this topic a little bit, and we hope that you enjoy listening. Welcome to Heart and Soul, the podcast where we empower and inspire women to lead their best lives, harnessing the power of their hearts and souls. We are Mariah
and Monique,
your hosts and guides on this journey of self-discovery and personal growth.
In each episode, we will dive deep into topics that matter most to you, from self-love and confidence to career development, relationships, and everything in between. We believe that every woman has a unique strength and inner wisdom waiting to be unleashed.
Join us as we cover insightful heart and soul-centered topics and interview incredible women who've overcome challenges, chased their dreams, and found their true purpose. Through all of this, you will discover practical tips, strategies, and real-life stories to help you navigate life's twists and turns.
For whatever season of life you're in, this podcast is your safe space to explore, learn, grow, and possibly even laugh and cry with us. So grab your headphones, maybe your favorite drink, and we'll embark on this transformative journey together.
With heart, I'm Mariah.
And with soul, I'm Monique.
Okay, so for our listeners, I'd love to just hear from you. What was your journey as an entrepreneurial mother? And what are some of the highs and lows of choosing that lifestyle?
Yeah. So I started my first business when I was 26 and I had my youngest son. He was 6 months old. So I started a commercial cleaning business and it was really out of need. So daycare for 3 small children was kind of a lot of money. And I had been a dental assistant before. And I think like when I calculated out how much I would be paying for my kids to go to daycare. So I was like, what can I do? What skill set is easy? So I started the business and kept growing the business, started other businesses, whatever. So my youngest son was 6 months old, has never, ever not known his parents to be entrepreneurs. And his brothers were 6 and 2, right? So my kids were raised in an entrepreneurial household. And I don't know that I know it any different other than I had the first 6 years of my oldest son's life where I wasn't an entrepreneur. So I was a 9-to-5 W-2er, and my son went to daycare. He hated daycare, by the way. It's so much so, the funny joke is when the other two would be begging for me to send them to daycare because they wanted to hang out with their friends, my oldest son would say, "You don't even know how lucky you are. Daycare sucks." So yeah, I my younger two didn't go to daycare. And that's one of the beautiful things about being an entrepreneur and being a business owner is I was able to work my business or create a business so that it would work around my kids' lifestyle. It was flexible, or at least I created it to be flexible. I started it, I would go to clean an office building after I'd put my sons down for bed. I was there for them from the time they got up. When they would take naps is when I would do paperwork and, stuff like that. It was a beautiful gift to be able to do both, to have a career and to be able to raise these kids the way I wanted to raise them and to be in their lives. And it was really, really fascinating. There were some takeaways from it. I was sometimes beholden to like client meetings, and I would be late for picking them up sometimes. And if you ask them now, people tell me all the time, "You were late all the time." I'm like, "All the time? That seems like a lot." And they're like, "No, all the time for picking us up from football practice or whatever, So there was that because, you're always as an entrepreneur, you're doing a million things. So I felt like that, but I also felt like the flexibility of just being able to schedule around their concert versus not being able to go to a school concert in the middle of the day because I couldn't get off work for a couple of hours. That was fantastic. My sons all learned to work hard because their mother worked very hard. I would have them in there with me in my business working. My oldest son never wants to be an entrepreneur, and my youngest son is an entrepreneur, and my middle son, he does both. He has a job and he's a musician who, promotes himself and, sells his own stuff. So I feel like he's probably more balanced about it. But it's interesting because it runs a gambit of what they personally want, but they learned how to work hard regardless. Yeah. They all worked in my businesses. I all paid them a wage. I was their first job. And I think if you ask them, I probably taught them a lot of valuable things about work ethic and working hard. Yeah. So I'm curious to hear the same sort of thing from you in your story about your daughters.
Yeah, so I think back that I was the child of an entrepreneurial mother.
Yes.
So I also had the pros and cons of that, of, being able to watch my mom work hard to working alongside her in her business, and but also seeing her struggle to make it successful while also still taking care of us and, forging a path as a woman in business. And so I saw that, and what I knew is the most important value that I held was that I wanted to raise my kids, and that I only wanted a career that would allow me to both be home with my kids or be available to them and pursue something that I loved. It was it was just in me. And my mom had stayed home for a lot of our life as well. So I knew that life, and I was so grateful for that sacrifice she had made to put aside her career to raise us. But I also knew that it didn't have to be forever. So I thought, well, if I go, and do something for myself, I could start small, I can grow it. They're not going to be little forever. So over time, I can put more time into my career. Like I had that model. If you don't have that model, it's really hard to see how it can work. So I felt really grateful that I could see how it could work.
Your mom was like ahead of the times,
She really was. Yeah. And so I knew like my number one value was I want to make my own calls about my flexibility with the kids. Now that other side of that was that a mom who was a workaholic who, I was always working. So even if I was with them. So those are sort of two different things. Yes. And I think that took me longer to recognize that there were periods or years where, I was home, I worked really late at night, and, dad put them to bed, or for a period we had a nanny and she was making all the meals. Like I wasn't necessarily as present as I thought that I was. Just because I had my own schedule and could make the calls didn't mean I always put them at the top of the list, which is really like, it was hard to face when I realized that, that I was more working on my job than I was working on being a mother. However, just like you said, it was at a time in their life where they could understand enough to know and to value the hard work that I was doing and to be proud of what I was doing. And I always included them. Just like you said, you would bring them, to the job site. Their bus dropped them off at my office.
Mhm.
Like they were just part of the team from the earliest
I love
age
that.
up and through now. Like they're working in my businesses and are valuable members of the team. I will be so sad when they go to college and I lose them from the team. But they had that value and work ethic that I'm just so grateful that's what they were able to take away from it. Obviously, I was doing something along the way to not have them resent my schedule. I did always draw the line around like I did not miss things at school. I did not miss, a game, whatever it was, as long as it got on my
Mhm.
calendar,
Yes.
I didn't miss it.
Same. Mhm.
And that as long as we had a boundary around that, and I didn't sacrifice their birthday parties. I'd also said that from the
Mhm.
beginning as a party planner, event planner. If I can't deliver a good party for my own kids, like what am I really doing? And so I really like doubled down on that, especially when they were young and still, we'll drop everything to put that together for them. But it was like intentional. I had to stop and think about like what are the most important things here if I can hold those lines and those boundaries, but still have the ambition and drive to go and build my own thing. Like I'm doing it. I'm doing it both, right?
Yes.
And I'm grateful that out of that came like their own sense of, sky's the limit on their own ability to work hard and set their own intention, make their own life for themselves. And whatever they end up doing, I'll probably have one that's an entrepreneur and one that will never be an entrepreneur, right? Like just like you said,
Yes.
just because of who they are. But I think it's something that I wanted to have this episode to tell women listening, if you are in that phase of your life where you have kids and you're wondering like, could I really do this?
Mhm.
You can do this.
Yes.
You can do this. Like it is not as scary as it sounds. You can carve out that time and still be an excellent mother whose children look up to her. Like absolutely. And I just don't want people to think it isn't a path that they have to support themselves and also raise a family while being an entrepreneur. Like that's a myth. It's not true and a lot of women do it. And I want to be like someone who
Mhm.
can show the success of that.
Yeah, I
along
think
the
it's
way.
important if you want to have a career, but you also want to, like you said, raise your children, I think intentionality does matter too, right? Like I would sit and like formulate my work schedule around my kids' school schedule. I'm sure you maybe did the same or you'd insert them. Like you said, the bus would drop them off at the job site. That's pretty awesome.
You just get creative.
You do.
Yeah.
Yes. And you learn how to time manage.
Yep.
Right? Like it teaches you like, okay, I got to pick up so-and-so here and then drop something off here and then, talk to here. And it's just a thing where you learn to be very productive and very efficient in your business as a way to make sure everybody's getting their needs met. But there's something so wonderful about like having your kids. It's like they're getting a little mini MBA, just
Absolutely.
by absorbing. My youngest son, all my sons are very eloquent speakers, but my youngest son, I swear, is a natural born salesperson because I drag his little butt at 3 years old to all of my meetings where I'd have to meet with clients, and he'd just sit there. Can we please go? Can you stop talking?
Yeah, but he
And
picked
they'd
it
laugh
up.
at him. He thought he was cute, and I was like, oh my gosh! But he learned how to just be a business person.
Yeah. It is such a valuable set of skills that they'll take into their lives and they
Yes.
just pick it up through osmosis.
Yes,
My one daughter is in econ in her classes right now and she's like, "Oh my gosh, mom, like I can so relate to this." And
it's real life
like-
experience of what they learn in school.
yeah, absolutely. And the customer service side of it. I remember when my girls were so little, I think they were like 3 years old.
Oh,
And we had a retail store at the time and they went up to a customer in the aisle and asked if they could help them. Maybe they were like 4, but like I remember hearing this little voice be like, "Can I help you find something?" I just thought, oh my gosh, you're going to like, this is a skill you'll use forever, being able to talk to people, look people in the eye,
Mhm.
shake their hand, provide customer service. And so I think that's a key is as a mother, if you're going the entrepreneurial route, you have to find ways to include your kids. It
Mhm.
is an option that you have that I highly recommend exploring
I
of how
agree.
to bring them with you and to build a business that incorporates them. It's an amazing, just I don't know,
It's a
just
missed
amazing education.
opportunity. It's a missed opportunity, I think, if you compartmentalize it so much where you don't allow them to participate in your life and more than just bring your daughter or son to work day, right?
Right.
Right.
And it's a benefit because you have that choice. You can create that environment. And I'd always, work with my teams to be like, hey, I know they're here. I know they're making a mess. Like, I'm not going to expect you to clean up their mess. I hope I was good about that because, man, if you're in a flower shop
Pants on fire.
there's a lot of mess to be made. Those
Yes.
girls had a good time. But, I just always wanted them to be welcome. And so now, like, to actually have them as part of the team is so cool. And then to see yourself in your kids and
Oh,
think
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, you got that trait from me, or you're just like your dad. Like,
Yes.
it's a really cool experience as well.
Yeah. I think for women who, like you said, are thinking about this, or if that's the barrier, you can really have both. It's that intentionality piece, that planning piece, and also just trial and error it. Like we say, take it to the lab of life.
Yeah.
Like if it doesn't work, the nicest thing about this is you can pivot and you can change. Because who's your boss? You're your boss.
Yeah.
It doesn't work anymore. Just scrap it.
A lot of entrepreneurs that we work within our mastermind groups, like they still have childcare. And don't get me wrong, there's still a childcare component of this.
Yes.
I had a nanny for years.
Right.
Like that isn't not part of the equation. You just get to decide the degree to which it's part of your equation and what that scenario looks like in a different way when you're not looking for a 9-to-5 facility.
Absolutely.
And I think that is what has been, in our mastermind to like work with the women to help them come up with like, what is the right combination of all of the services in your life to support you living out your dream, and to look at that in a different lens versus just like, well, I have to do it this way.
Right.
Because you're working on somebody else's clock. And I really think it was important for me to talk about this topic, and it will come up again, I'm sure, because in our group and in the work that we've done together, we serve the woman as the whole person.
Yes.
The entrepreneur and the mother and the wife and the friend and the daughter and all those categories. Like,
it's a holistic approach.
there isn't
Yes.
a conversation we have in our group with women who have children where that doesn't come up, where that balance isn't on the table. Like, we're constantly confronting like this topic. So I think making it, something that we share about in our own journeys was necessary.
Agreed.
And
Yes.
I think that when you have autonomy in the decision making around your children and around the decisions that you make, this is so empowering. And I don't know. I think it's worth exploring if you are inclined to think you want to do something entrepreneurial, but you are afraid that would hold you back. It doesn't have to.
Right. And it doesn't have to look like how Mariah and I did it, to your point, right? We have tons of people in our masterminds who full-time daycare and they're full-time at home because their business is just, that's the way they need to create their business. The one thing I will say that's very similar between being a mother and entrepreneur is both are the hardest job that you'll ever do. The worst hours.
The worst hours.
Sometimes the worst pay.
24/7.
And if it's parenting, there's no pay, by the way. Don't get into it for the pay.
Don't go into it for the pay.
Kisses and hugs are really nice,
Yeah.
but they're not monetary.
Yeah.
But the rewards,
Yeah, you can't
both-
even put a price on it.
No, in both entrepreneurship and mothering. And I do think that the skill sets can transfer across.
Yeah.
If you can lead a family, you can lead a team.
Yeah.
Or yourself.
Yeah.
If you're your team, right?
I should have known that I would end up with multiple businesses when having multiple children at one time didn't faze me. That I just was like, I don't know. Seems like I can
Just put them in over here.
One wouldn't have been enough. Like, give me two. I got this. Like, I really did feel that way too. Like, I'm so blessed and lucky that the twins came to the right person because I was ready to use my skills to juggle two babies at the same time. So that's definitely probably helped me later in life as I've added businesses to my plate and keeping them up in the air. And now I'm entering a different phase of life where my kids are going to be leaving the nest and pursuing their own dreams. And boy, they are hot on those. So I just get to cheer them on. And I think it's going to be interesting for the first time since I started my business to not have them in my daily life, not be dropping them off somewhere, not be picking them up or worrying about what's for dinner for them, things like that. Like, it's going to be a transition.
I remember when my kids left, I was like, yeah, it's really sad that you're gone, but wait, I miss my workers.
I know.
Right? You're going to have the same thing because your daughters are working in your businesses.
It's be a huge joy. I really, because I enjoy it. Now I spend my weekends working alongside them and it's like I get the best of both worlds.
It's wonderful.
So I'm bracing for that change. But I just think, anybody out there who can relate to this, maybe you've lived this as well, share with us, what your journey has been like. And I just love celebrating every mother's journey. And it's just, we're whole people. We have a lot going on. And in another episode, we'll have to talk about partners and husbands. 'Cause keeping them happy is a whole other thing.
Yeah, it's a whole nother full-time, part-time job, depending on who you're with.
It's a job. So I just hope anybody listening has enjoyed hearing a little bit of our own personal journey, a little bit of insight into us personally, because we're happy to share our own journey. But I think we are two examples of making the entrepreneurial lifestyle work with motherhood.
From a very young age.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Look forward to next time.
Cheers, friends. You've just finished another episode of the Heart and Soul podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed the show. And if you've loved it, we would love if you'd leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening. You can find links to leave that review in the show notes, where you'll also find other resources that we reference on our show. And if you think a friend could find value in today's episode or any future episodes, please share this episode with them on social media. This is one of the only ways the podcast can organically grow, and we just can't wait to connect with you and all of your besties. You can also find Monique and I on our many social media platforms or our websites, and we're going to leave links to those in the show notes as well. Thank you for listening. We look forward to sharing our hearts and souls with you again next time. With Heart, I'm Mariah.
And with Soul, I'm Monique.